Not in my backyard.
This facility should not be near any resident.
The location for a new incinerator facing more lines in the sand.
We believe that a lot of what has been shared by concerned citizens is antiquated research.
Join me in a round of applause for your new chair, Anthony Rodriguez.
The most powerful man in Miami-Dade.
We are elected by our community to serve them, not to serve ourselves.
The new commission chair with us live. Crisis in Haiti. Weapons from South Florida.
We will not tolerate in our backyards for gangs to take any government.
That and more as Congresswoman Sheila Cherfilus-McCormick joins us live. Trump talking tariffs this week. What does that mean for South Florida? The big news of the week and the newsmakers all live this week in South Florida. Good morning. This Thanksgiving weekend, we are grateful that you are spending a bit of it with us. So let's start here. What does trash talk, a no-bid land deal for soccer, and Trump Avenue have in common? It's all on the agenda for this week's Miami-Dade Commission meeting, a full plate for the commissioner who has just become the most powerful man in Miami-Dade government. Anthony Rodriguez is the newly elected chair of the county commission. Big agenda, big questions, a lot of decisions to make, and right here with us live today. And I'm so grateful you're here. Good morning.
Good morning, Glenna. Thank you for having me, and thank you to all the listeners and viewers today.
So I want to start out kind of big picture with you today because, you know, a lot of people don't really, we broadcast from Deerfield to Key West, and a lot of people may not realize what a powerful position commission chair is in Miami-Dade. So is this the kind of thing where you come in with priorities, and what are those?
Absolutely, Glenna, and that's exactly what I did starting the very first day. And my priorities are simple. My priorities are to put the people first, those that elected me. For far too long, we as elected officials often get that confused, and that should be at the forefront of all of our minds as elected officials. So one of the very first things that I did coming in, and I understand that that's one of the topics we'll be discussing today, is, but for the last year and a half since the incinerator burned down in Doral, we've kind of been kicking the can down the road. So the very first thing I did after being elected chair was to set a special meeting, which is this Tuesday, to discuss that very matter. And hopefully start to get that conversation going to ultimately make a decision in the coming months.
So, you know what, let's stay with that a little bit because you may or may not know a little bit later in the show, Doral Mayor Christi Fraga will be joining us. On Tuesday, on that agenda, it looks like there will be a decision made for the location. It's been deferred twice before your tenure as chair, but you were on the commission. It's been deferred twice. There's been at least I'm almost counting 6 different locations considered. Give me where you are as chair. You know, you said you're going to address it. Do you have an opinion either way where it goes? Because right now it looks like it's going back to Doral.
I do, and listen, I do have received an official request to defer it again. But this time it's very, very different. I think we need to look at this holistically. I don't think this is a one decision type of act. I don't think this is something that we just look at where do we place it today. We got to look into the future 40, 50, 60 years, and even as far as 100 years in. And that's exactly what I wanted to accomplish. And that's what I think is happening. We got the conversation going again. For well over a year, the conversation had been dormant. And when it did come up, it came up with no real solutions. Now I've put a deadline on it of Tuesday to discuss. And if my colleagues and I decide to defer this on Tuesday, it'll have to be with a date certain and with a real plan in mind, something that has not happened for over a year. So I look forward to that. We now have the president's son, Eric Trump, who has weighed in on this, obviously opposing it going in Doral. But the reality is that now we've got all the stakeholders involved. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure that this conversation gets flowing and we make the right decision. We've got to discuss landfilling. We've got to discuss incineration. We've got to discuss landfilling within the county and outside of the county. There's many, many options. Is the current location in Doral sufficient? Is it large enough? Does it meet all of our county needs with the upcoming growth and anticipated growth that this county has and has continued to see? These are all topics and subjects that we need to discuss holistically.
All All right, it looks like we have a little Zoom freeze, which is never a good thing when you're in the middle of a conversation. Let's see if we can get the chair back. Are we back?
Hello?
We're having Chair Rodriguez, we're having a little bit of Zoom glitching, which is, you know, our This Week in South Florida audience is always along for a ride sometimes. So are we good? Can we go ahead?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Okay, so let me just
I hear you, Glenna.
okay, perfect. So let me just sort of validate what I think we've heard. Are we going back to square one on Tuesday? Oh, and if so, what's happened to all of those other locations that it seems like have been vetted over the last year?
Yeah, Glenna, absolutely not square one. This is exactly where we needed to be. I wish we would have been here a year ago, but this is not square one. We finally have all the stakeholders at the table ready to discuss this, something that has not been fully discussed. And if this item is, however, deferred, because we do have a deferral request already on the table, waiting for the agenda. So if that is the case, then at least that conversation is all-inclusive of all the stakeholders, and we have to make a time-certain date decision because this is costing us money every single day, and we ultimately we owe this to the residents of Miami-Dade County.
So do you foresee any other location besides what has already been on the table? There was one at Opa-locka Airport West, so close to the Miramar line and neighborhoods in Miramar that the city of Miramar threatened to sue. There were other places in Medley, some private land swaps that were proposed. Is there any other location that you'd like to break with us today?
Yeah, Glenna, look, the reality is we're the largest county in the entire state of Florida. We're a $12-13 billion budget. We cannot be intimidated by people saying that they're going to sue. Every location we've explored, we've gotten some threat from Miramar, from the Opa-locka West. I mean, the environmentalists, everybody has threatened to sue us. We cannot live in intimidation. We owe the people of Miami-Dade County an answer. We are costing the people of Miami-Dade County money. Every day that goes by that we do not make a decision on this. There is several options, but in addition to locations, we've got to explore other options, right? Such as landfilling. I don't know that that's my preferred option, but it's definitely something that has to be brought to the table and discussed as well. And I believe that's what will be done on Tuesday. Shall this not be deferred? And if it's deferred, I will do everything in my power to give it a date certain to make a final decision on this item.
Okay, let me switch around for a little bit, bring some other subjects up with you. One of the huge changes that the county is facing in the next couple of months until January, 5 different county departments are going newly independent. We've talked a lot about the sheriff's office. That's pretty big. There's also the clerk of court and the supervisor of elections, pretty big. But the two others that are the tax collector and the property appraiser, those two departments really do have so much interconnected with county government. I'd love to hear you weigh in on how that is going to work and what challenges and maybe opportunities you see in that.
They often say, Glenna, that in government and for elected officials, we don't choose issues, issues choose us. And this is exactly what happened with these 5 constitutional officers. But this gives you a real good feeling and temperature of the environment here in South Florida and in our state today. And that environment is that the people want transparency. They want a voice. They want to be able to elect their own government representatives. And that's what happened here with these 5 constitutional officers. They're tired of the bureaucrats. They're tired of us selecting the people on their behalf. And look, I think this is good for the people. They will get just that. They'll be able to hold these 5 constitutional officers accountable for their actions. Now, that said, it will be very challenging for us as a county government during that transition. This will be something that we have to, kind of look at our budget very carefully and very fiscally responsible to make sure that we're not duplicating services. So that's something that the mayor and myself will be tasked with doing, obviously alongside all my colleagues on the Board of County Commissioners. But that is something that will definitely fall on our watch over the next 2 to 3 years.
One of the things I wanted to talk about is something I found on the agenda that was kind of at the end, and I'm not sure if it's a late ad, but you'll let me know there, and it's your sponsorship, the feasibility of putting, a report of the feasibility of putting rail on certain corridors that may exist and may not exist yet, in lieu of bus rapid transit, which I'm thinking that's pretty monumental, since bus rapid transit has been the focus for at least the last couple of years, with a lot of money invested in that infrastructure. Explain.
So Glenna, this is something that has long been overdue. And I'm not saying in lieu of, but we do have to explore rail where rail is available. And ultimately it may or may not come to fruition, but we have to at least go down the path. And I understand representatives at the federal, state, and obviously local level have a desire to do so. One of my priorities, Glenna, during the next 2 years and moving forward is the east to west corridor that goes parallel to the 836. Something that has been long over. It really is real public transporting out what in the west side of the district, of the community, of the county. And that's exactly what I intend to do, is just explore this. We're in conversations with CSX, who owns the lines and the right of way to this corridor, to see if it's feasible. But the infrastructure is there. Of course, it'll need some modification, but it's very doable if we can come into some sort of agreement. And then, of course, we have the rest of the smart plan corridors, some that are already well on their way, and others that still have some years to go before getting started. Miami-Dade County continues to grow, and we cannot continue developing and developing, which of course there's a demand, so must happen, without the right infrastructure. And that infrastructure starts with us here at the local level. So that's what I intend to do.
So do you foresee rail, aside from this east to west along 836, whatever happens with that in the future, do you see rail as the future of Miami-Dade transit?
I believe it's definitely an option, and I think it could be. I think that people want to not drive an hour to work. They don't want to commute. They don't want to get on different vehicles. They don't want to get in their car, then get on a bus, then get on a metro mover in the tail end of it. People want to spend more time with their family. They want to spend time doing the things that matter to them. So yes, I do believe that rail is a real option for this county, where it's available and where it's feasible, and that's exactly what we're exploring now.
One more question before I let you go, because this has gotten a lot of attention on the agenda. On Tuesday, there will be a question whether to okay at least co-designating Palm Avenue, a certain area of Palm Avenue in Hialeah, as President Donald J. Trump Avenue. Is that something you're inclined to vote yes on?
I fully support it, Glenna. I mean, it's our incoming president of the United States, someone that I've supported for many, many years, and we're excited to have him. So yes, I personally intend to support it and vote yes on that item, and I hope that all of our colleagues do the same.
And then there's something else it's an actual resolution, because I think this must be a state road, to designate a portion of a state road in Miami Gardens as Congresswoman Frederica Wilson Avenue. Is that something that happened that you would be inclined to say yes to as well?
I could support that. Listen, we have to support all of our elected officials that have done good work in this community. And if it's important to my colleagues, it's important to me. So yes, I do anticipate supporting that as well.
I see people being really confused when every street in Miami-Dade has 20 names, but okay, this will be a fun meeting to go to.
I agree, Glenna. That is a whole different conversation.
100%. Listen, I am so grateful that you're with us this weekend. I know it's a family weekend, and I really do appreciate that, and we'll see you Tuesday.
Thank you, Glenna. See you soon. Take care.
The impacts of Haiti on the brink of collapse hit daily in South Florida. Hardest for those who have family and friends that live in danger, obviously. The gangs that shoot at planes, that kidnap and destroy, are armed with weapons that trace back to the U.S. And a new report details most rooted right through South Florida. And we start right there with Congresswoman Sheila Cherfilus-McCormick, currently the only Haitian-American serving in Congress, and also the only South Florida rep automatically reelected last month without opposition. And so for that, congratulations.
Thank you.
And welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to talk first about this report. We reported last year, I want to say, on a report about guns coming through South Florida, arming the gangs in Haiti. This is a new report that kind of confirms that and blows it up into a Caribbean issue. And you pushed for the release of that report.
Yes. I mean, we've been seeing and hearing from a lot of our international partners about the guns coming into the Caribbean. The reports have been very clear that close to 75% come from South Florida. We even took a tour of the Miami River, and we saw how difficult it is to actually track these guns. We're seeing them broken up into little pieces, into cereal boxes, into different kinds of ships. And so it's hard for us to actually stop the proliferation of guns into the Caribbean.
So they're being shipped not as weapons, but as parts of weapons.
Yes, we've seen that in several cases. It's easier for us to find them when they're actually in big containers because we can sniff those out. We have many dogs, but the way their craftiness of it and how they're putting it in makes it more difficult. So we've even worked with the DOJ to have a new prosecutor that's focusing on the Caribbean and focusing on the guns coming in.
So do the ships and shipping companies know, or are they part of the victim chain? How does that work?
So the shipping companies are part of the victim chain, but we also have to understand that there's a lot of people who have their businesses, like small business owners who ship. So now you're dealing with not just big industries who actually have more control, but a lot of the smaller companies and the smaller individual shipping people, they're actually having a difficulty in finding these guns and stopping the proliferation.
So how is that? I know you have a bill that you recently filed that targets illegal gun exports, but how would that even work?
So we have the Catch Act, which is going to bring more attention. And
what is Catch Act?
So the Catch Act is pretty much the Caribbean arms trafficking bill.
It's an acronym.
It's an acronym. And so what we're looking there is to make sure that we have not just rules that are on the book, but we have weekly reporting or yearly reporting so we can see if it's actually working. Because it seems like every single month we have a new thing we're trying to do, but what's working? Are we actually taking the time out to see, is this, the process that we have in place, is it actually giving us the results we want? Because if it was, why is it the number of guns going into the Caribbean consistently increasing?
To the gangs?
Yes.
So do you think that the people who are doing the worst there have contacts here?
Absolutely. We've seen that most of the guns have been either purchased in Florida, Texas, or in Georgia, and we see that they're coming out of Florida. So there's a direct relationship. If you've seen, we've also been arresting many people who are participating in actually sending the gangs money and weapons. So making sure that we can identify them, stop the trafficking of guns, it has been like our priority from the beginning.
You were here with us, I want to say it was, March, and we were talking a little bit about this, and I mean, since then, despite the UN mission there, security mission there, I mean, we had the Spirit Airlines jet shot at. There's a travel advisory now. Has there been progress, or in your estimation, the Prime Minister was ousted, the new Prime Minister? Are the gangs winning? Even asking that question, it's like I blanch asking that question.
No, absolutely not. I wouldn't say the gangs are winning, but we're not having enough funding going towards the mission. The United States has played their part. Canada has played its part. Even in South America, we're really having difficulty getting commitments from European allies. And without the funding that we need, we can't see a large scale of missions that are successful. We saw that there were 14 gangs who we actually were able to bring down. They're gang leaders, but we could do more if they were actually equipped and had more personnel to do what needs to be done in Haiti.
So we call them gangs, and the gangs that we talk about here, or maybe in Latin America, it's a very different kind of group. Is that your estimation that that's a proper way to address the people who are doing these things?
Well, the gangs have a little bit more sophistication because they are supported by different cartels. There are guns and there are drugs coming through Haiti. So they have more sophistication, especially without a government to actually supervise them or stop them. And that's why we're seeing them growing to that magnitude. That's why we're seeing them with all different types of armored cars, all kinds of things that if they had a stable government, we would not see them growing to that extent.
So last time you were here, you had mentioned the U.S. needs to play a role, and the U.S. actually is playing a role. It's not working. I mean, it's harsh to say, but it's not working. What do you see the role of the U.S. here? And have you, the Biden administration, we're at a time where one administration's going, another is coming, and there is really not a lot of daylight there between them. I mean, it's two opposite approaches. So what do you think the U.S. role should be now, and what do you expect in 50 days?
Well, I think the process that we've been going through is actually a process. We can't make a determination if it's winning or failing at this moment, because we're getting some gains, but as we're moving forward, it's going to take time and it's going to take investment. And as we see this transition going on, there's a lot of ambivalence. A lot of people are feeling anxious about it. But looking at the people who have been coming appointed, I think we can kind of find some solace in understanding that we have all been working to help Haiti. We do have to play a role in helping Haiti. It is a national security issue for us, and because it's so close to our borders, we have to be consistent and have a plan for the long term. There's no short-term problem or a process that would actually give us the results we want, because this was a problem in the making for so long.
So what do you see, practically speaking, that role is? Because there, you know, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but just from watching and reading and learning, there really is not an appetite for boots on the ground, especially in the next administration, in an international conflict. And yet, Haiti is such a localized conflict, as we've been talking about in so many ways. What do you think? I mean, if you were, I'm sure you are advising, if you're advising, what are you advising the U.S. role to be?
Well, we have to pressure our European allies who have participated in the demise of Haiti to actually ante up. They have to support Haiti, and they have to actually put money towards it. When we look at the money, like we've committed over $300 million. France, who has been the cause of most of the instability in Haiti, who even received reparations from Haiti, has pledged $3 million.
But to do what with that money? You know, pledging money. There's a lot of money that literally disappeared in Haiti over the past couple of decades.
Well,
do what with it?
So right now, when we have the mission, the failure of the mission, or the reason why the mission's not moving forward, is because the Kenyans don't have the equipment that they need. They don't have enough people, boots on the ground, that they need. And so it seems like the U.S. and the Americas have been funding it. So any wins they have, it's because of the United States and Canada. And our European allies have been sitting back and just watching. This is not a moment for you to sit back and watch, especially when it comes to France.
Do you expect change in 50 days? There have been a lot of, you know, the President-elect Trump has made a lot of statements about what he'd do on the first day, you know, mass deportations being one of them. What do you expect, you know, as we talk about what's happening there and what might be to come? I mean, what's your sense of what's to come?
I think what's to come, looking at who he's actually appointing, these 50 days I think are going to be more of a lame duck session where Haiti's going to have to figure itself out. Removing the prime minister I thought was extremely disappointing, especially since they have a deadline for February of 2026 to have a president in place, which means elections have to be there, free and fair elections, which is going to be hard when you have so many new people coming in. So that is very disappointing. And we're going to see more, I believe, of the conversation of Haiti as a national security issue. When we're looking at one of his appointees, Michael Waltz, we were actually in Foreign Affairs together, and we talked about Haiti and actually how do we make sure that Haiti is actually safe and not a security risk to us in the United States. So there's going to be more conversations on that. But until the Trump administration actually starts putting some real policies behind what they want to see for Haiti, I think that's where the ambivalence is. That's where even Haitian electeds and people in Haiti are kind of worried, where do we go from here? Are we going to see a total neglect of Haiti and, hey, you guys do what you want on your own? Or are we going to have the continued engagement that is necessary for us to finally have some kind of relief? If there's no relief in Haiti, our borders are going to be a continuous issue. If there's no release in Haiti, we're going to continue seeing more of the cartels coming into Haiti and taking control of it.
And it is a 3D chess game. I know you are involved in so much, Veterans Affairs, et cetera, and I hope you'll be back often to talk about all that. Congresswoman, thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, back to trash talk. Miami-Dade's incinerator burned to the ground, and in the almost 2 years since, the battle is over, as you heard, where to put the new one. The county mayor's latest recommendation this week to rebuild it in its original Doral location. That fueled protests that hit like a boomerang in the city that thought it was finally in the clear. For the decision scheduled for Tuesday's commission meeting, Doral is rallying residents for a fight, including rallying the Trump family to participate. Doral Mayor Christi Fraga is leading that charge and is right here with us now. Mayor, good to see you.
Hi, Glenna. Good to see you too. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I know you were not able to listen to our conversation with the chair earlier. So he talked about he's, I think, expecting a deferral for this decision on Tuesday, yet another deferral. But what he was saying was not starting from square one, but certainly he felt like there's really a holistic discussion that really needs to be had about a landfill, about the incinerator, about technology, about location. That's got to be, I guess, good news to you.
Yes, absolutely. And I've been in constant communication with the chairman, as well as other county commissioners over the last couple of days, really through the last 2 years regarding this issue. But I think now the pressure is really starting to get on. And, since this recommendation came out last Friday, which was extremely surprising to us, very disappointing. The mayor had consistently recommended to move this out of Doral for several reasons. And I think the most significant of those reasons is that the county's own master plan contemplated moving out of Doral always, because Doral is landlocked and doesn't have the capacity to really meet the solution or meet the needs that the county needs for a solution for long term. So we're talking several years into the future, 50, 100 years into the future. Putting it in Doral, I've said multiple times, is like putting a tourniquet on a severed artery. You're only going to solve the problem for about 20 to 30 years, especially with an incinerator where the technology is just constantly evolving, and you end up having the same problem. And this is $1 billion that the county is looking to invest, no matter where it goes. So it's a large investment, and every county resident should be worried about this decision. Doral is not the right place. Of course, Doral pays the price with our quality of life, and we're also taxpayers to the county. So for us, it's a double hit. And this is why we've been strongly advocating against it, because at the end of the day, it is a health concern for us as well. As much as this technology has changed, you're burning all types of chemicals in this plant, all types of plastics. So we really have to look at as the chairman said, at a holistic solution, look at if incineration really is the option. Should we be building the largest plant in the United States, which is part of what has been recommended? And I do believe there's other solutions to this problem for the entire county. So I will be working very closely with the chairman as well as the county commissioners to make sure that the correct decision is made for the entire county, because a decision is not the correct decision. So while there's been pressure onto making this final decision of where the location will be, I think it needs to be the correct decision for several generations for this county.
You bring up, I know you are very well versed in the argument opposing this in Doral. You bring up arguments that everybody everywhere, if this is to be near a city or a municipality or a neighborhood, are going to have as well. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, it was there before the residents in Doral. Truth be it, the county actually permitted residential near to that facility. But one of the things that I was really interested in is, since this has been going on, there's history to this. I mean, there was a plan to build something new long before the fire. But the history to this, culminates in some different locations that have been looked at over the course of the year. And then it was deferred in the last month, because 2 11th hour new locations possibly came on board. What happened? I know you have insights that a lot of people don't have. What happened to all of those other possible locations? We know about the Airport West. Miramar opposed that, but what about all those others?
So I think that's something that needs to be seriously contemplated. I don't think that any of these proposals were seriously taken into consideration. And I think that there needs to be a discussion about each of these locations and what it represents to this decision-making process. What can be offered at each of those different lands, because each one does have a different challenge or a different advantage, like maybe even access to rail out of the county and into north part of the state or into Georgia. So I think that there are viable options that were presented, but none of them were seriously taken into consideration. That is my opinion. I know that all the county commissioners have a desire to make a decision on this and move forward and solve the problem, but I don't think that there was really an entire explanation of each of the proposals that were brought in front of the county mayor. And I think that those do need to be considered by the county commissioners. I know that Commissioner Regalado has asked several times for a workshop to be able to have these discussions in the open, look at possible public-private partnerships, other technologies, other solutions, whether it's buying land and actually landfilling and railing some of it out of here, building a smaller incinerator, or building an entire campus like the county mayor has suggested. But I think it is going to take all the county commissioners coming together and really looking and studying at all the different options that have been presented almost in like silos, so that you have all of this in front of you to make the best decision for the county long term. You have to look at what the costs are in each of those scenarios as well. It's not an easy topic. It is very complex. It is very technical, and it's an interesting industry, the waste industry. So I do believe that they have to have more information on all these different proposals. The county could even, which this was never done, these proposals that were offered of different lands were unsolicited. But the county could even open up and say, you know what, we want to open up a competitive bid or a request for proposal of every single one of the private sectors that has land and the potential to build a solution, whether it's through a waste to energy or another technology or a landfill or campus, and see what proposals come forward, because there may be some interesting ones that come in there.
Yeah.
So I think that there should be a call to proposals and open it up and see what comes forward as well.
Are the mayor talked about new technologies. There's a new waste facility in Palm Beach using, all kinds of new modern technology that might mitigate the hazards and mitigate the smell around the campus. Have you been to that facility, and are you comforted by the fact that at least there's new technology that might make it a very different experience than what's been in Doral?
We have no doubt that anything that is going to be built in the next 7 to 10 years, which that's the anticipated expected, construction time if it was to be built again, that it would be better technology and that we would have, a better outcome. However, we still have many, many concerns that when you compare our standards to standards across seas, whether it's Japan or Ireland and all these places where the county commissioners went to visit this technology, the standards of what they're burning is different than the standards in the United States. And so there is still a health concern that exists. The plant in West Palm Beach, to my understanding, is already outdated. It was built, I believe, 15 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, and already there is new technology that is even filtering more the type of incineration that's happening and producing less ash and things like that. So this technology is quickly evolving. And so you're making a decision to build something that is just, and standards are changing across EPA requirements. So there is that concern as well. Now, you also have to take a look that the plant that was built in West Palm Beach, I believe the closest resident is about 1.2 to 1.5 miles.
It's a different. It's not apples to oranges, I guess.
Correct. And Doral, we're talking about it would be less than 1,500 feet from the closest school, resident, park. So it's really it is very, very close. There is no buffer or distance. And as you very well stated, Glenna, this was all approved by the county years ago. These were not changes to our certification that Doral made. These changes were made before we were incorporated. And it was built around. And again, if you go back and you look at the county's master plan for this site, 10, 15 years, you see that it always contemplates moving it to another location once it reached its lifespan.
Yes. It sounds like you are well prepped for Tuesday's meeting, and it should be an interesting meeting. I thank you so much for filling us in and invite you back when this decision's made.
Absolutely, always here to serve, and please let me know when I can come back, and we'll continue to make sure our residents are educated. Thank you very much.
Talk of tariffs got more specific this week. President-elect Trump put numbers to the taxes he plans to immediately impose on products from Mexico, Canada, and China to force cooperation on border security and the flow of fentanyl and more from those countries. What does that mean, though, for what you buy for specifically South Florida, for jobs, for the economy? The next conversation is not about politics. It's not about support nor opposition, and all about what we can expect. And for that, we turn to Randy Deshazo, who is Deputy Director of the South Florida Regional Planning Council, a go-to organization where they research opportunities and challenges that Broward and Miami-Dade and Monroe counties all face together. Randy, great to have you on the program.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here to talk about this very important issue.
So what we're going to talk about is forecast and expectation, because there's a very real possibility that tariffs may not come to pass. That the president-elect may not think that they're necessary anymore.
Correct. Right.
So forecast for us the numbers that you've seen: 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico goods, 10% on China. What does that calculate to you?
It means very significant impacts to the cost of imports. So tariffs are taxes on imports, and they're used for a variety of strategic purposes, such as what you've described. But ideally, they're used to help local businesses and to rebalance the terms of trade between the United States and our trading partners. So there are definitely good aspects to tariffs, but there are also some negative sides as well.
So specifically for South Florida, I mean, just like off the top of my head, there's the auto industry, there's the port, there's, I know you had mentioned electronics. There's some very specific South Florida components that will be affected, agriculture. Have you sort of laid out any kind of impacts to specific industries yet?
Yes, there are several layers to the impacts that we face. As all Americans, we can expect higher prices in stores due to the impact of tariffs being passed on to consumers. So a lot of electronic costs will go up. We might expect an additional $450 on average to laptops, another $200 to the average cost of a smartphone or a tablet. But there will also be very localized impacts as well, not just to the ports, which are very significant, not just locally, but also across the state. We have a very large economic footprint. And then for shoppers here in South Florida, we might expect some disruptions in supply chains. We enjoy fruits around the year that do not necessarily grow in the United States, and we have to import from other parts of the world based on the seasonal variation. And if the tariffs on those imports are too high, we may not see them in grocery stores year round. More importantly, perhaps, is the impacts on our exports. We have both thriving industries in manufacturing and in various kinds of financial services. We are the global center for a lot of the business activity in Latin America. All of those things face risks from a potential trade war if that's what occurs.
Can you take foresight from hindsight? I mean, in his first term, then President Trump brokered the Mexico-Canada-U.S. trade agreement. I may have that acronym wrong, but it was replacing NAFTA. And what the effects of that were, can we read into those tea leaves into what to expect this time?
Yes, most of the estimates out there stem from not necessarily the U.S.-Mexico-Canada USMCA agreement, but more specifically from the impacts from tariffs. So if we face higher costs in terms of how we expend our money, we can expect up to $6,500 less in our real income, our actual take-home income. That could occur because of not only just the increased costs from the tariffs we impose, but there's likely to be retaliation from other countries where they impose tariffs on our exports, and therefore we might expect an overall loss to the economy as a result of a trade war.
Would it ever come to pass that, on some point in the timeline, that would spur U.S. or even local South Florida production that doesn't exist right now to, a new supply chain, a new agricultural product, a new electronic product, spur the economic and jobs that may not exist now to compensate?
Sure. In some respect, that's exactly what the incoming administration, I think, is looking to do, is to help spur more competition domestically to meet the challenges from industries in other countries. So it's possible, but we face a world where there's a lot of complexity, a lot of interlinked connections between supply chains across the globe. And so there are a lot of risks here, but you're right, there are some opportunities that we hope to exploit in the near future.
And I just want to, I mean, for our audience, I want to just make it a real point. And you have no partisan slant. You and your organization are strictly factual and science-based. It's not about politics.
Yes, we are just the facts, ma'am, kind of organization.
We are too. We're with you, brother. I want to just talk about a little bit South Florida, as you know, it's our home, but it is such a hub of international investment. And something you had been talking about was very interesting to me, how international investors look at, particularly in South Florida, with the potential of these kind of North American and China tariffs.
So there are a lot of different aspects to it, but one of them is to what extent the U.S. is a safe bet going forward for investment. Another aspect to this is that there's a story today where the president-elect was talking about a proposal by a group of developing countries led by Brazil, Russia, and China to look at alternatives to the U.S. dollar as an alternative global currency for trade. So there are a number of different angles to this, and of course, to what extent we actually can influence the direction of investment will be very much in play as we work our way through this period of uncertainty about what happens with tariffs.
So much more to come. Thank you so much for being a resource for us, and I hope you don't mind if I keep picking your brain a little bit as we go forward.
No, not at all. Thank you.
Randy Deshazo, great to have you aboard. Thank you. That is our program for today. Links to all the interviews to see and share, plus our This Week in South Florida podcast. It's all right there online at local10.com. And if you scan that QR code right there, they'll take you there pretty easily. We want to hear your thoughts about today's program or anything in the news. Our email right there, twisf@wplg.com. Have a beautiful Sunday, and remember, keep in touch.